Welcome everyone to
Alrighty,
episode 4. We did it.
episode 4. Here we are. Woo!
Yeah, we're over the hill. We're
Yeah.
established podcasters now.
Oh,
We
yeah.
got literally weeks of experience. 1 to 3 weeks of experience.
That's right. This could possibly be like a 1 month anniversary or something, you know?
Yes, the special episode just for you people. But yeah, no, it's cool to be doing it a little bit more, and I hope everyone's enjoying it and becoming a little bit inspired. Besides my
Yeah.
mom.
Uh,
But no, it's been great, and I've been enjoying
Yeah.
chatting with you, Brandon.
yeah, man. At the very least, we're inspiring ourselves, and hopefully that inspiration carries over to other people, whether they care about the topics or not.
I think it can.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
You know,
I know for
I hope
myself. Go ahead.
I hope that people, think deeper about just the different aspects of their life and
Yeah.
what stuff maybe they look at in a sort of, take for granted, or you look at simple things in life and just think like, oh, I never really give that a second thought. I just know that's a part of life.
Yeah.
But instead, if you really think about it and take your time with it, you could find something really inspiring about that, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, you can find inspiration all the most random places I've found, and that's what, unfortunately, YouTube gets me on. I'm like, ooh, someone's really good at making cakes. Interesting.
Yeah.
Show me more.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Well, the Great
You want
British
to start
Baking
off our
Show.
topic this week? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a market for it.
So I have an interesting thing that has been inspiring me this past week, and
Nice.
that
I
is
can tell.
sleep. Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm going to now demonstrate that for the next 60 minutes by taking a nap.
Wake up totally refreshed.
Yeah, wake up refreshed. So if you fall asleep while listening to this, that's totally fine. That means you've been really inspired by this. But no, I think that sleep is really inspiring. For one, I've done a lot of research behind sleep and trying to understand how does sleep work. There's been this book that came out recently called Why We Sleep, which really blew up the sleep research world and got people interested in it. And I've been
Who did
reading
that
through
one?
that. I think his name's Matthew. Oh, is it Matthew Walker? I want to say. Gosh, I can't remember.
Okay.
I think it's Matthew Walker.
Yeah, I think I watched a podcast with him or something.
Yeah, he's
Is he a
got
British guy?
podcasts and British guy. Yeah, British guy.
Yeah.
But it's just made me really inspired by the idea of sleep. It's so fascinating to think that from the moment you're born, you just go unconscious for 8 hours every day. And we all just sort of accept that, and it never really gets explained. It's just like, yeah, I feel like being unconscious for many hours now. I'll be completely defenseless, and I won't know what's happening to me. But I really want to do that. In fact, I crave it, and I just wish I could have as much of it as possible. It's like, that's sort of weird.
Yeah, it's one of those things that sometimes with things, the more you think about them, the less weird they get. This one's kind of the opposite.
It's I think normally we don't think about sleep, and so it feels normalized. But when you really stop and think about it, it's like, that's strange. That's a really abnormal sort of weird behavior that we all just do,
Yeah.
But there's a lot of aspects to sleep that I think are interesting. And I think what inspires me about it is how when you get good sleep, it's such a superpower. Because when you sleep, you suddenly have more energy, you're happier, you can think more clearly, you decrease the brain fog.
Yeah.
You could be in a really bad mood one night and you go to sleep and you wake up the next morning and the mood is totally changed.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting about sleep is how...
And can I comment on that?
Oh yeah, add into that.
Yeah, because it's it is super weird because you didn't even, you fixed all these things and you didn't work a single, ounce on it. It all happened.
Right.
So it's you're actively fixing things and making things better, but by doing nothing, essentially.
I know, isn't that fascinating? You're completely passive, and by being passive in the state of sleep, you've repaired all these systems in your body, your brain, all the stuff happens subconsciously.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. You could maybe even slip in a message saying that once you get out of your own way, a lot of good stuff happens. But anyway, I just find that sleep is fascinating, not only in that sense of recovery and physiology that happens to your body, but it's also interesting in thinking back to like the moods and kind of the emotions with it. When you think about, passages in the Bible where it talks about how, there's joy in the morning, or the Lord is like the new dawn, or things like that. It's so fascinating how you almost have like a restart in life every single day. Like you're not totally restarting your whole life, but it's almost like you get these little mini, like, time to start over again, boop, start the whole, like, cycle of life again.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you turn off your computer, turn it back on kind of thing. You, like, turn off your body, turn it back on. It's just...
Defragment some stuff.
Defragment,
Closes all the apps that were open that were, piling up from the previous day.
It's like that time in the computer where like some program freezes and you do the Control-Alt-Delete and pull the task manager up, and it's like, it's still not working. What do I do? You just got to like unplug and plug back in.
Yeah. Or you're like, you open it up and you're like, whoa, I had like 40 programs running. I didn't even know I had this going on in the background.
I know, right? Yeah.
It just takes restarting, and interesting.
Yeah. So I find that sort of start over cycle is inspiring by sleep. And then there's the whole other component of sleep that's just getting into dreams, which is like a whole explosion of like crazy topics to go down,
Yeah. And
your
people
brain
have been
is
massively inspired by dreams,
Yeah.
Interesting. So I really like the renewal aspect of what you brought up with sleep. I think that's actually very like triggers a lot of thoughts in my own head. But one thing I was going to touch on was, I wonder if like with depression and stuff, it's like, that's why people are always sleepy all the time, because they're trying to like reset. Like it's their body's way of trying to like reset out of this like funk they're in or something,
Yeah.
And it's
I think so.
But like if you wake up with the same problems, like you're going to try to reset again, as soon as you wake up. If you don't ditch the problems or find a way to like work on them, you'll always just have the problem first thing when you wake up. So it's just like, well, I just want to go to bed again and not be conscious for these things, or get a reset maybe. And so, oops.
Oh, you froze there for a second. You still there?
I'm still here, yeah.
Oh, okay. I lost like the past 10 seconds, but you were saying something about people with depression and then they sleep and it starts over.
Yeah.
Same problems are there.
Yeah, and so if you don't like address the problems, your body's always wanting to reset and maybe go back to sleep to try to like solve it. But that's like if your problems are external more so, or something that's ingrained in your patterns of life, then it's like those aren't going to go away just from your body like fixing itself or healing itself.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I think also it goes into the question of how much of depression is influenced by a person's circumstances versus their perspective on those circumstances. Because if you have something like I could be having a really great day where a bunch of stuff circumstantially is really going my way. It's great. But if I didn't get enough sleep and I just feel grumpy and grouchy and I feel gross all day, I'm not really going to have a good attitude about it, even though everything's working out. I got all the green lights on the traffic or whatever it is.
But then you hit the red and you're like, I'm so unlucky.
I hate my life. Why did I get this one red light? Life sucks for me. It's like, okay, I just didn't have enough sleep last night, But you could also have it where it's like, life is terrible, but maybe you got great sleep and your brain wakes up and feels good. And you're like, you know what? It's tough and today's going to be a hard day, but I feel good about it, or I'm going to do my best, and you have that positive attitude. Obviously I'm like really just putting a simple spin on a really complex issue, but
sure,
it does come into question like, gosh, if I get better sleep, I could be like a happier human being. And that's a superpower, I think.
Well, then you get into like weird stuff of like, so if something's actively disrupting your sleep, like, are they controlling you? Say there's like a construction crew that like works overnight next to your apartment or something, keeps you up all night. It's like they've influenced you even more than you realize. They've shifted your whole perspective on life potentially.
That's interesting.
To where you are grumpy. It's like that's a lot of power to have over somebody if the quality and the amount of sleep really does like affect that much in your life and your views and perspectives.
Yeah.
It's almost a form of mind control.
I think I think
Which,
sleep deprivation is a form of torture that
exactly,
people
yeah.
have used. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, if the CIA's figured it out, it must work. They wouldn't do it
Oh man.
otherwise.
Yeah, that's
So,
right. If people use it for torture, then it must be effective.
I know I feel tortured every time I'm in the yurt and the walls are like super thin and someone decides to start shooting at 7 a.m. in the morning.
Oh man.
It's like only in Idaho, but all right. Like, I
Yeah.
appreciate your freedom, but I sure don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't like the sounds it makes. Get a
Yeah.
silencer. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. I want to talk more about that renewal part because I think
Hmm.
that's like I think there's a lot there, just both philosophically and on like a physical level. And
Mm.
so when you like for you personally, what feels is it more of a mental thing or a physical thing or equal, or is there something that stands out to you personally, like when you sleep?
I think I think that like in the idea of renewal, it feels like every day is a blank slate, you know? And you were using the example earlier of how it's like you have 20 or 40 programs open, you know, or tabs on your Windows or whatever, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
like you restart and you go back to zero again. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that happens, at least for myself. I think that definitely happens throughout the day. It's like, okay, I've got to take a shower and I've got to make food and now I've got to put on my clothes and I got to go to work and I got to go to the gym. And there's like all these different parts of life where it's like the kitchen window opened in my brain and the shower program entered my brain and the work program. And there were 20 sub programs that opened within the work program. And, you know, and then you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, I'm fried, I'm tired, I can't think, I can't do anything anymore. You go to sleep, you wake up the next day and it's like, blank slate. It's all renewed. Like I'm fresh. You know, I don't have all those thoughts in my head again.
So
And in the one sense, oh, go ahead.
do your thoughts like stick with you even after you've like completed them, or is it like so you have the window thought and it's like does that I guess maybe is it more like it takes energy from you or something to like go through that program, or is it more of um like continuously open?
I think for me, when I open a train of thought, it's continuously open until I like close it almost. Like it's really hard for me to sort of derail the train of thought. And
They
I
call that
need to
OCD.
OCD, yeah, maybe. Probably a little bit of that. Probably some kind of mental illness.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that it's partially, I think about something and maybe I haven't processed it all the way through. Like I'm thinking of an idea and it's like, oh, I haven't quite figured out this idea. There's more to think about with this. So
Yeah.
I have to like spend some time processing it and kind of deciding what I think of something or just repeating the idea in my head. And if I'm trying to go to bed at night, it's like, oh man, I've still got all these thoughts in my mind. I need to like get all these thoughts out of my head. If I can go to sleep, then in my subconscious sleeping, it's like all those thoughts just suddenly get derailed. And then I wake up the next morning and it's like, oh, there's nothing there. Which I think can be a problem if there was something I was really trying to remember. Then it's like, oops, I need to write that down and I need to like figure that out tomorrow or whatever, you know?
Sure.
So, you know, as long as I don't forget stuff, then
Yeah.
then
Well, that
it's,
makes
then
sense.
it's all
And,
good.
like it's hard because a lot of those thoughts, you can't have resolution to every thought, at least from what my own personal experience is. You like, you're never going to have perfect resolution on thoughts. So yeah, having a way to reset those instead of having a bunch of like open books or whatever, in your mind, it'll actually, like make sense to kind of close some of those, and then you can either consciously or maybe unconsciously reopen them the next day if they were important.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. And,
Okay.
when it comes to things like dreaming, I mean, that's yet again the subconscious mind. It's like when you're sleeping, the conscious mind is almost disconnected. It's like in neutral. You're not really like doing a whole lot, except if you get into the lucid dreaming idea. But then when it comes to dreaming,
That seems like it would be a waste of energy. It's like, why would you, the whole point of blessing of sleeping is to like not have to be in control and not like,
right?
I don't know. whatever, expend mental energy. So
Just go for the ride, you know. If you make really dumb decisions in your dream, just I don't know, I guess just make them.
learn from
Just
them.
don't stop it. You know,
Yeah,
if you have
there
a
you
dream
go.
where you're turning into a werewolf, like I guess I don't know.
Yeah, let it
Um,
overtake you. Sorry, I didn't want to derail you there.
yeah,
But
derailed already. No, I
you're saying
think
the
that, you
conscious
know,
mind disconnects
right, the
unless
conscious
you're
mind
lucid.
disconnects. And so it's interesting because then when you're dreaming, it's almost like you're observing your subconscious mind, which is a whole
Hmm.
nother category of sort of an inspiring aspect of sleep. It's like you're almost watching the theatrics of your subconscious brain creating a lot of times like a narrative of some sort of story that's happening, and it's almost
Yeah.
like you're in the movie theater just sort of watching it. And you know, a lot of times you're the main character or you're one of the characters in the whatever the story is of your dream.
Hmm.
And it's always these, I mean, sometimes it makes sense for people, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's like, I went into the classroom, but the classroom was the ocean, and then we were flying, and then there were dragons, but I was a dragon. You know, I mean, sometimes it's like weird things that doesn't make sense, and things kind of like
Hmm.
flow from one scene to the next, and they don't quite work together. But
Do
I
you
feel
think
like it's
that's like? Do you think that's like a symbolism type thing? Like each of those different, whatever, like a dragon maybe has an association for you, and it's like those are all parallels to things in your life, but they're just like symbols that you're associating with, or is it just that they're completely random?
well, okay, see, that's the interesting thing is that when you're watching your subconscious mind, you're now perceiving the world the way that you do subconsciously. You know, it's
Hmm.
like sometimes it's kind of hard to understand yourself, and it's like the autonomic nervous system of your anatomy, your subconscious sort of in the background brain that you don't really work consciously. It's almost like another entity within you that's like doing
Hmm.
things sort of behind your back a little bit, you know, hopefully for your
Yeah.
benefit. In dreams, it's almost like the interaction where you look into that part of your brain and kind of see what's going on. And
Hmm.
it's weird when you think about a dream, if you can observe it and just try to figure out, like, why did I morph into a dragon in this particular situation? Like, why did my subconscious do that? I think that's different for each person, but it's just
Hmm.
fascinating because that's a perception or an impression of how the subconscious brain operates, how it
Hmm.
communicates, how it works, how it thinks. And you're sort of getting this like weird little glimpse from conscious to subconscious in like a weird sort of narrative story in dreaming. And that is like that's a trip. I
Yeah.
just think that is crazy.
It's like you're seeing a different world. So
Yeah.
normally, I guess there is maybe there's. Would you say there's some sort of like going back to language and like our podcast about that? Like, do you think that maybe there's some sort of translation going on between? It's like when you're awake,
Mm.
is there like a translation going on where the subconscious is getting translated into conscious thoughts,
Hmm.
or and you're like you're perceiving them as rational thoughts and whatnot, but the origins are actually like completely subconscious and weird and wild, and how your subconscious views it. But you just get like it's translated as like, "Oh, I'm hungry," but like your subconscious was really thinking about like I don't know, a bear foraging in the woods for blueberries or something, you know. But the thought that pops up is like a translated thought, you know, of
Yeah.
like whatever. Um,
Yeah, it could totally be that way. That's definitely an interesting idea to think of. That like, yeah, maybe you're thinking of a story where something's happening, and that relates to some kind of deep inner need of your subconscious that's almost like trying to communicate to you. I mean,
yeah,
that's an interesting, you know,
because I
like I
know.
don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I know with like bacteria and like the vagus nerve and that kind of stuff, like so the bacteria in your gut, a lot of your cravings and stuff for food, like actually come from the type of bacteria that lives in your gut and what they
Mm,
feed off. So they actually send
mm,
signals to your brain that gets like translated as like cravings for certain foods. And so it's like, I mean, if you want to call the subconscious your gut bacteria, like that might be what we refer to as,
mm.
you know, it might be because you said it's like another entity, you know, which if it is
Yeah.
like little bacteria living throughout your body, like sending you these signals, it technically is another entity or another life form that's, sending all these like little signals and impulses. And so that's why if you actually change your diet, your cravings will change, because so when you stop giving like the certain kind of bacteria one type of food, they start to die off. And then whatever you're eating now, like all the bacteria that like thrives off those foods actually starts to grow in your gut, grow in your intestines. There's even bacteria in your brain, people have, it turns out. And so then all those things, they're like, ooh, okay, now that basically as the signal grows, or as the amount of bacteria and like little third parties grow, then that increases the amount of signals they send back to you and to your brain. So it's like, it's kind of one of my favorite, this is a little bit of an off topic, but one of my favorite verses in the Bible, it's like, to whoever has, more will be given, and to whoever doesn't have, even that will be taken away. It's kind of like this principle of like, almost like self-fulfilling nature, or like exponential growth, so it's like the stronger the gut bacteria is in your thing, the more signals they're going to send for craving for that thing, which like reinforces it to make you eat more, to like increase the amount of bacteria and the signals they're sending, so it's like this ball rolling, picking up speed like metaphor, I think. But all that to say, like, maybe the subconscious is that bacteria sending these signals, and then it's like, that's what you're translating and being like, oh, like, it's nothing you can really pick up on instinctively, but there is like a weird translation process that goes on. Yeah. And I always wonder if it's like that. The other thing I was going to ask is, so with your example of like dreaming, and like when you're asleep, you kind of take a peek into that dream world. When you're awake, does the opposite happen? Does your subconscious get like a peek into your conscious mind or something? Does that make sense?
I think the subconscious mind is always watching. It's Big Brother.
Right?
Big Brother always knows.
Yeah, because it's like, if your conscious mind is observing this and like slightly interacting with your dreams, like maybe it's working the other way. So it's like when you're asleep or when you're awake, your like subconscious mind is like, it's like almost like it's watching a dream, being like, this is so weird. Like, what is this conscious mind doing? Like, it's just doesn't make any sense. I don't get it.
Did you watch that movie Get Out? Did you ever see that movie?
No, I didn't.
Do you mind if I spoil it for you and everybody listening?
Please do. I don't really watch horror movies.
Okay, yeah. It's not a horror per se. It's more like a thriller, but it's kind of a psychological thriller. And I don't know. It's kind of intense. I don't know if I really recommend it or not. But there's an interesting thing where they're basically trying to like take people's bodies, mind control the people to subdue their conscious mind inside their body, and then like transmit somebody else's consciousness into that person's body, so that people basically never die. Their consciousness just sort of switches from one body to the next. That's kind of the whole aspect of the movie. But there's this process where there's this hypnotist who basically captures this guy and hypnotizes him so that he almost like shrinks back inside his own body, and he's like stuck in there and like loses control over himself, but he still knows everything that he's doing. So he's like consciously aware of his body, but he's like not in control anymore. And it's almost a weird thing of like, I wonder if that's like our autonomic nervous system, where it's like somebody else is driving the ship, but I'm like in the background still here. It's like, oh, that's kind of weird.
Hey, don't forget about me.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while it just like gives you like weird signals that you like sometimes ignore and sometimes pay attention to.
Yeah.
It's like, why is my heart racing?
Yeah.
It's like your body trying to tell you that like you need to cut back on the caffeine drinks.
Yeah. Your muscle twitches and you're like, oh, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like just trying to get your attention in any way it can, and you're like just trying to ignore it as much as you can. You're just like holding your arm down. It's like, it's fine. It's like your body's trying to tell you something, man. You're like, no, it's fine.
No,
or
I don't want to listen to it. It's just little Brandon.
Or even with sleep, it's like when you get super tired and it's like, that's your body sending the signal, and like people still try to like go past that, and like fight it and like, no, I'm going to stay up another hour and do work or socialize or whatever, you know, and then you're like literally fighting against this person or this other part of you that's like trying to help you and like alert you to like what your body's doing. So yeah.
Huh. Well, sleep, that's my thing that inspires me for this week that I found interesting. Unless you have any other thoughts on that, I'd love to hear what inspires you for this week.
Yeah, no, I think all my thoughts on sleep. I could probably talk about it all day, but
yeah, you got to lay them to rest at some point.
Yeah, there you go. Way to wrap it up. Perfect. My topic was on energy and kind of renewable energy, I guess, in a sense. It could be energy in the broadest sense of the word, but just like, what is energy? Like, how does it affect the world, and like how to, on a just like using energy, like electricity standpoint, like how to use it responsibly and like, all that.
So more industrial energy, not like personal energy.
It could even dive into personal energy too, because it's I think it's all related on some level. But yeah, I'm thinking like as far as renewables and like, you know, because for me, I'm always trying to like, you know, you get promised all this stuff of like how cool it is and like, oh, solar is going to be the future, and you know, it's all these things, but then it comes with some caveats and like, but actually we have to use nickel and cobalt mined from Africa and all these solar panels. And you're like, you had me until then or whatever, you know? And, but I truly think that there is like, just because something's being done in an unhealthy way or like a less human rights way,
ethical.
I don't think that like it can't be done in like a really good way. And so that's kind of what I've been thinking about is like, you know, how do you make sure everyone's like taken account for and treated right while still, you know, making it work? Because I mean, if you look at the planet, it's like it's all solar panel powered already, you know, the plants grow from the sun, you know, people need the sun. It's like, it clearly works in a sense, you know. It's kind of when you see fusion power and people are like, oh, well, it doesn't work, but you're like, but look at stars, like it clearly works. We just haven't found the way to like implement it yet or make it, you know, suit our purposes, but it definitely works. And so I guess for me, do you have any experience with any sort of like renewable energy or using like any sort of maybe places you've worked that have like kind of experimented in it or anything?
Gosh, I mean, you know,
driven in a Tesla.
I haven't driven in a Tesla yet. No, I would love to do that at some point. So yeah, if anybody listening has a Tesla, call me. But no, you know,
research.
I remember I got this camping equipment one time where it was just like a little box, just kind of a flat little box. And it was like the size of an iPhone, like a big smartphone, and it had a solar panel on it. It was just one small sort of open solar panel, and it was waterproof and everything, and it was just like really well contained solar panel. And the whole point was that you could go out camping and you could leave this thing in the sun. And, you know, it's small, so it's not going to absorb a whole lot of sunlight, but it was just a tiny little solar panel, and then you could plug it in and charge your phone, laptop, whatever you want. So if you were like out away from electricity. All I can say about that is that I left it out in the sun for like days, and it could never charge my phone. It just did not even work. It was terrible. And so
not even close.
Yeah, you know, and it's just like, gosh, it just doesn't even work compared to like just plugging my phone into the charger in the wall, you know, just getting the electricity from the ground. And so I think that when it comes to energy, like it is really inspiring how if you have a good source of energy, gosh, you can just make the whole world go round. You know, you can just you can light up cities and cars and industries work and people have jobs, and it's amazing. But then it's a bummer because it's like, well, how do we get that energy? You know, and that's the problem that countries are facing constantly.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been trying to kind of my thoughts on it have been towards because I keep seeing like the most healthy movements are all stuff that is very local and like community driven. And so like for me that's kind of what's inspiring is watching communities like take charge or take back their own, you know, I don't know if it's like maybe responsibility is the right word, but like, you know, instead of like outsourcing all their needs to everybody else, like kind of taking charge of their own needs and like really trying to figure out how to manage that. Cause you know, the smaller the community, the easier it is to account for everybody's needs and to like check in with everybody and make sure everybody's like being taken care of. You know, it's like you think about that even on like a family unit, it's like that's like the easiest place to, you know, I mean, you would think it would be, it doesn't always play out, but you know, it's like that should be the easiest place to like check on your kids' needs and you know what your spouse wants or like, you know, because you're with these people every day and you like get to see the ramifications of your actions and stuff. And so, like, I think that's probably like one of the smallest forms of community. But then, you know, even going a little bit bigger, like a town, it's like, I think when they kind of put their mind to it and, you know, kind of like I've seen different projects where people do, well, and it depends on the community too, because you have access to different resources. So it's like not everyone should maybe do solar, but if you got a big river, like there's really good, like small scale hydro stuff you can do. And so I've seen just different like little communities a lot in Europe and Australia is actually one of the places of all places that I think probably because it's so harsh there, they kind of have to adapt and, you know, get creative as it were. But, you know, just people that work with like on small community scales to create actually more than enough for like what they need a lot of times. And so whether that's like setting up solar for themselves or like even like geothermal stuff in places with like underground like hot springs and stuff. Yeah, it's actually like pretty cool when people band together, and a lot of times it's through like little city ordinances and like city tax and stuff. But it ends up being like really cool, like sustainable stuff, and then everyone kind of like even takes pride in that a little bit and be like, we're the solar city, you know, and we get like 75% of our stuff from here, and it's really cool. That's what I would love to kind of get involved in, and just at least in my little town. Or
I think Iceland. Have you looked into Iceland? I think they've got a lot of geothermal stuff that they do with their volcanoes. Yeah,
that's
pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool when I visited. They actually, I believe they pump a lot of that geothermal hot water through pipes for heating, like passive heating in like buildings and houses and stuff. So they just like pump it straight from the ground. And then I'm not sure if they like send it back underground to get reheated up and then back through their system or if they just dump it. But I think they like send it back down underground and then do like a passive heating thing like that. Which is cool. Okay.
That's interesting. Yeah. So a question for you. Oh, okay. When you're ready for it.
Yeah. Cause I was going to say, it's like energy doesn't even have to be like how we think of it as in just, you know, I need more electricity, you know, it's like you saved yourself electricity on heating or firewood or whatever by using a different form of energy, which is just heat. And I guess most energy is just heat in its core, but you know, you used a different form of what we would think of as power and, you know, saved yourself electricity or saved yourself whatever this other thing is, you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah. Well, okay. So the question I've got, you know, do you feel like in our modern world, do we need more energy? Not more sustainable, not like, you know, not talking about the methods of energy, but like if we were to quantify how much energy is produced in all its different means all throughout the world, does the world on its large scale actually need more energy? Because theoretically, once upon a time, we lived in, you know, non-urban, more rural farming tribes, things like that. And it's like, you know, the sun beat down on you, but nobody had electricity, you know? So it's like we existed at one point without the industrial form of energy we have today. Do you feel like we need more of that energy?
Interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. I think a lot of times it's about using what you have more efficiently in a lot of
Mm,
ways. It feels like there's a lot of waste in Western civilization, and
mm,
just having worked at a grocery store where they throw out like a quarter, I'm being exaggerating a little bit, but like a quarter of the food, just goes either like
yeah.
into the trash or food banks, like, which is great that, there's a place for it to go, but um, it's just kind of like wild how much gets thrown away or, you know,
Mm,
making things like one-time use, like plastic stuff. It's like it takes energy to produce plastic stuff, and then if it's like a water bottle, and then it just gets thrown away, it's like not only is it the plastic going in the environment, but it's also the energy that it took to make that. It's just essentially wasted.
mm.
So I think being more efficient with it is good. I I would say that like I mean, it feels like there's two camps of people, like people that need to always push the envelope and always like innovate and be more, it's like the human spirit or the
Hmm.
whatever that the human drive, I guess that people call it. Um, I tend to not have that. I don't know, like I don't like I think civilization's pretty great. Like you could stop it right here and I'd be pretty content. But
Mm.
um yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think things need to progress further? And because as things progress, they'll need more energy just inevitably for computing and just everything we do. But
Yeah, like I think that if we want to advance technology, then we need to have more energy. If we want to
yeah,
have better cars, airplanes, trains, equipment, computers, houses, whatever it is, if we want more technology, we need more energy for that.
yeah,
But I don't necessarily think that more energy relates to like better societies or healthier countries or like healthier
yeah.
people or I mean theoretically there could be health in the sense that you have more emergency care or you know how to treat things better, you have better equipment to like solve problems. But
Higher
in
standard of
terms
living.
of yeah, like there could be some higher standards of living, but then if it becomes too costly, then that's only for the, people who can afford it, not for the masses. So,
Yeah.
like in a general sense, I don't know if it necessarily increases health, just like in a very baseline idea of health. So
Hmm.
I think that we need it for our ambitions, but we don't necessarily need it for like our survival or even for
Like
like our
thriving.
unity as yeah, even for like thriving as human beings.
Yeah.
So just depending on how you look at it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you could, well, that's when I look back kind of through history, like most of the problems were from things other, like people always kind of point to like, oh, the medieval ages, everyone was disease ridden and, nobody lived to past like 30 or whatever. And while that was the case, a lot of times I think like this is completely speculation. I have no research done in this area, but from what I've observed and seemed to find, it's like a lot of those things were the case, but they were in big cities and
Mm,
places where like people were just like dumping raw sewage down the gutters and like
yeah.
it wasn't necessarily like the agrarian like farmer type people, like sure getting an infection out there was bad, but like for the most part I think those people lived to be a lot older and a lot healthier than when you think of the typical medieval person like in a big city in like medieval London where they would like literally just dump sewage in the river. It's like yeah, you're probably going to get cholera and get diseased all the time if you're like living in sewage. That's just kind of goes hand in hand. So for me, like what you were kind of saying about like energy not necessarily equating to standard of living, it's like a lot of these problems that just not having energy like would cause, I guess, are more of like societal things of how you structure your society and how you treat just the aspects of human like life, I guess. Like you need to be able to manage like sewage and waste, and like you need to be able to do all these different things in a responsible way. And if you're doing those things in a responsible way, energy or no energy, it's gonna your civilization's gonna thrive and do well, and people are gonna be better for it and healthier and happier. So
Mm,
it's like it's more about the responsibility than the like what you have or don't have, I guess, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Which I think honestly, like really, it's kind of like I think it bleeds over to every area of life where, people are always trying to figure out if technology is good or bad, and it's like, well, the technology is completely neutral in and of itself. It's the people using it, and like basically technology just enhances your power. So if like, and your reach in the world. So if, a bunch of people with ill intentions are using it, yeah, like nuclear stuff is terrible, because it enhances people's who have bad agendas reach by a ton and increases their influence by a ton. But if everyone's like good and doing the right thing, it's like, it's going to make the world a crazy better place, So it just really boils down to people's responsibility and stuff. And yeah.
It's true. Yeah. And I think on the political scale, especially in current events with energy and energy crisis, a lot of energy
that
and
is a
power
hot word
systems.
Right now, huh?
Yeah, crisis is a hot word. Maybe I shouldn't use it. I don't know. Situations.
Has been for the last 5 years.
Has been for a while, yeah. But,
Yeah.
You think about the way that countries will use energy, and a lot of times energy is used to like control another country. Like you think about right now in Europe, at least my current updates that I know about Europe is that Russia is shutting down a lot of its power lines, sending propane and natural gas to places in Europe. So Russia is like, hey, we're in like this war with Ukraine and we're not really interested in hanging out with the Europeans right now. So like, see you later. We're not giving you energy anymore. And now a lot of people in Europe are worried because they're not able to get heat in their houses for the winter, and winter's coming up. So people are going out to the forest and chopping down trees. And it's like, we're going back to the medieval ages. It's like we've progressed to this state of technology, but yet again, the technology did not create a more moral society. So because of politics and people having war and conflict and issues, the technology has regressed. We've almost like lost our knowledge through fighting with each other,
Interesting.
And it's sad to see that, but it's just an interesting thought of like sustainable energy, kind of what you're talking about. I think one of the most sustainable things in energy is using it efficiently and responsibly and, for the benefit of humans and not for like, greedy political gain.
Well, and especially when you have it on the smaller scale for your own community, it's like you kind of almost gain an independence where you're not beholden to people, trying to use that as leverage, like you were saying, as far as like Russia, it's like, yeah, they can use that as leverage because they're exporting so much. And it really, then it kind of lets you just say, like, piss off to everybody that wants to meddle with you if you have that kind of independence.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know how deep down this rabbit hole I want to get, but it's like government aid kind of where, the grants all look good on the surface, but then there's all these like stipulations that come with getting money from somebody, that kind of make you beholden to different agendas or ideologies or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it's like, looks great, and I'll take the money, but then all of a sudden you see there's some strings attached, or or to keep getting it in the future, you have to have some strings on it,
Yeah.
So they get you used to the money, and then so that's why I think like finding independence is a very not only responsible and healthy thing to do for any person / community / nation or whatever, but it's just, I think that's what long term is going to give you the ability to, because if you don't have independence, then you're going to be not blackmailed in an extreme sense, but you're going to be swayed by a lot of external factors over your life, and who's pulling the strings. So I think anytime you can get away from that, you can make better choices.
Yeah. We'd probably better stop there before, somebody, the CIA or the secret robots of the internet find out where we, anyway.
The fact checkers.
Wrong.
Wrong.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. We'd better, it's a dangerous conversation. I have another question for you. When it comes to energy, especially sustainable energy, Do you ever think that we will, or maybe we have already, but it's just been kept secret somehow, achieve a status of unlimited energy with some kind of machine?
I think the closest we'll get is probably fusion. I know there's a joke that it's always 20 years out, basically. And so, they've been saying it since like the 1950s, like, oh, in 20 years we'll have fusion. And then 1960 and 1980 we'll have fusion. And 1970 and 1990 we'll have fusion. So, it's about 20 years out currently. And, but I think fusion would probably be the closest we would get, I would say, unless you can really start to mess with like space-time or something, and I don't know, create space-time friction that creates some weird energy or something, or
that would be interesting.
Capture some string theory, or I don't know what, but yeah, I don't know. Then again, it's like, what do people need this all for? I don't, I think someone just going to create a weapon. It's like, it takes the power of 1,000 suns. You're like, please no.
Yeah, I mean, don't you want to create the Death Star planet or whatever?
From their
Star
thing.
Killer.
Yeah, didn't
Star
they
Killer?
That's what it was.
They sucked the energy out of that sun so they could like destroy a bunch of planets. I mean, it's like, you got to know that that's a one-time use, because now your sun doesn't exist, so your whole planet's going to freeze and fall out of orbit, and anyway, there's a lot of flaws with that whole.
Didn't really think that one through, guy.
Oh, we've been building this for 100 years, and we did it once. Now we all got to evacuate. Oops, that was dumb.
Why did we want those planets gone anyway?
Why did we do that?
Yeah.
But I think the idea of sustainable energy, I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. If you give a renewable energy source that is unlimited renewal of energy at high powers of energy, you could sustainably, cleanly, unlimited give energy to an entire country. Obviously, you could use that in a really good way. And there's been lots of movies about this kind of thing, where somebody creates, I found the energy source. And I think there have. I feel like I've watched movies on this. I don't know. Maybe I should back that up.
Send me any of your recommendations.
Yeah, I feel like there's been movies where, not like a live documentary, but like a fictional movie, where somebody creates some kind of, renewable energy source that's like, this is renewable power, and I want to like share it with the world in a way that'll make it so that everybody can use this for good. And then there's a bad guy who wants to steal it and create a super weapon and control the world. And, but I think it's kind of that moral lesson of like, absolute power corrupts absolutely. If somebody could have the ultimate power of the universe, they would probably use it for evil. Like,
probably.
They just probably would, So it begs the question of like, should we be pursuing more energy versus just taking the energy we have now and using it cleanly, sustainably, and not trying to make like higher quantities of energy? It's an interesting thought,
Yeah, it actually turns out that device already exists.
Oh,
You ready for the tie-in?
Okay.
It's called sleep.
You're right. Every time you sleep, you get energy again.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was beautiful. Oh, that was totally hilarious. I should have seen that coming. Oh my gosh. That's great.
Yeah, so you just start feeling a little tired, just sleep, and you'll wake up with more energy than you left with.
That's right. I mean, you got to eat and stuff too, but mostly sleep.
No, food for sure, but
that's super
food
funny.
also just grows straight out of the dirt, so that's fine. Pretty straightforward. Cause, I'll make up, or I'll say one more thing before maybe we wrap up, but because today we were out picking apples, and it's like, when you see the amount of food's energy, you see just like how much the earth actually produces. It's like this apple tree that Chris's brother has, like loaded to the ground with apples, just like more than like a family could eat. And it's just like there's so much being produced if you just like actually used your space and like and most of those are going to go to waste. It's like he tells people they can come over and pick them, but like no one really does. And so, it's like there's more than enough for everybody energy wise. It's just you got to take advantage of it and not let it go to waste. So
yeah,
and that's what I'll end my little rant on.
Yeah, that's good, man. Sustainable energy and sleeping. Sustainable sleeping energy.
Food and sleep. There's more than enough of both, so just make sure everyone gets plenty.
Yeah. Gosh. Well, good thoughts. I like those.
Yeah. It's always a pleasure talking, and then I hope everyone maybe picked up a little thing or two, and can't wait to do it next week. Yeah.
You got it, man. Thanks everybody for listening. Also our moms, thank you. And signing off.
All right. Till next week. Bye.